The caregiver hummed softly, to the elderly man unaware. His wealthy son was watching her life change. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The night shift at St. Jude's Hospital always carried a strange kind of silence. It was not the peaceful kind. It was the heavy, humming quiet that made every fluorescent light feel a little too bright, and every echo in the hallway sound a little too lonely. The temperature in the VIP recovery wing was kept cool, almost crisp, the way wealthy families insisted their loved ones should rest. Machines blinked softly, their monitors casting pale blue rectangles across the polished floor. Anna Rivera tightened the drawstrings on her scrubs as she stepped into room 407. She always paused for half a second before entering, as if gathering herself. Some nurses resented this room. The case was too demanding. The patient had too much money. The family had too many expectations. But Anna had never been that kind of nurse. She did not choose this profession for comfort. She chose it because she believed people deserved dignity even when they could not ask for it. The man in the bed, Grant Carter, lay completely still beneath layers of hospital blankets. Once a tech billionaire, he was now a pale, unmoving silhouette framed by wires and tubes. His accident 6 months ago had taken more than his mobility. It had taken his voice, his memories, his presence in the world. In the soft glow of the monitor lights, his face looked younger than the headlines made him seem. Human, vulnerable, almost lonely. Anna wheeled the small basin closer and set out her supplies. Warm water, a clean towel, fresh sheets. She had done this routine hundreds of times, but with him, she moved slower, gentler. It was not pity, it was respect. "Good evening, Mr. Carter," she whispered, even though he never answered. "It is just us tonight." Her voice settled into the room like a soft blanket. She dipped the towel into the warm water, wrung it out, and began to wipe his arms with slow, steady movements. She always narrated her steps. She believed that, in some way, patients could still feel the difference between being treated as an obligation and being cared for as a person. Outside, thunder rolled faintly across the sky. Inside, the machines beeped in perfect rhythm. Anna did something she had never admitted to anyone. When the room got too quiet, she hummed, just softly enough that it blended with the air. Tonight it was the same tune she always chose, a lullaby her mother used to sing during long nights when fear made the world feel too big. The melody was gentle, familiar, and warm, weaving through the sterile room like a small act of rebellion against despair. "You know," she murmured softly, "I think you would like this song. It makes the room feel less cold." Her fingers brushed the edge of his wrist as she adjusted the IV line. His skin was cool, but not lifeless. She checked the monitor again, making sure the numbers remained steady. They did. Grant showed no sign of waking, but she kept talking. "That storm outside is getting worse. I hope your family made it home before it hit." She switched the washcloth for a fresh one, smoothing the wrinkles in the sheet beneath his shoulder. The hum of her voice filled the small space, calm and steady. It was the kind of care that did not show up in medical charts but lived in the moments no one else witnessed. She reached for the bedside speaker and set it to the lowest volume. Playing a slow jazz track she had noticed his heart rate responded well to. Another nurse once teased her about it. "He is in a coma, not at a spa." But Anna ignored comments like that. Healing was not just science. Sometimes it was softness. She did not know that just outside the door, someone was watching. A tall silhouette stood in the hallway, frozen, listening. His hand rested on the frame, breath caught in his chest. He had come late after a 12-hour flight, wanting to check on his father before heading home. He expected silence, sterility, and distance. Instead, he heard a lullaby, and for a moment, the wealthy heir who had spent years building walls around himself simply listened, unable to look away from the way this young caregiver tended to his father with more tenderness than any of them had managed in months. He had no idea yet that this single moment would alter everything in her life and his. Anna Rivera pushed the rolling cart out of room 407 and gently closed the door behind her, but the silence of the hallway pressed against her shoulders as heavily as the long night ahead. The hospital at this hour carried a particular kind of weight, the kind that wrapped around a person's chest and made every step echo a little too loudly. She rubbed her tired eyes, feeling the dryness from hours of fluorescent lights, and checked the time on her badge. She still had 6 hours left in her shift. Despite the cool temperature of the wing, a warm flush crept across her face. She had sensed someone outside the door earlier, a faint shadow near the frame, but she had convinced herself it was nothing more than exhaustion, making her imagination wander. She did not know that the person who had been listening was Grant Carter's son. She had not even met him yet. All she knew was that she had to keep moving, because patience did not wait for her feelings to settle. She turned toward the small break alcove and poured herself a paper cup of lukewarm coffee. The bitter smell filled the air, grounding her for a moment. Anna held the cup in both hands, letting the warmth soak into her fingers. She wished she could sit down, just for a few minutes, but she had promised herself long ago that she would never rest while her patients needed her. Not when her mother had lain in a hospital bed years before, frightened and alone, with no nurse gentle enough to stay past their scheduled minutes. It was that memory that made her fight to stay tender, even on nights when the world felt cold. Her phone buzzed inside her pocket. She fished it out and saw a message from her landlord, the third one this week. Rent is late again. Last reminder. She stared at the words until they blurred slightly. She already knew she did not have the money. Her last check had gone to her sister's school fees and their mother's medication. Whatever was left barely covered groceries. She took a slow breath, pushing the anxiety down deep enough to function. She could not afford to break tonight. Not here. Not when lives, including one belonging to a billionaire, depended on her steady hands. Her co-worker, Michael, approached from the other end of the corridor. He was older, always trying to mask his concern with humor, but tonight his tired eyes gave him away. "You look like you have been running a marathon through wet cement," he said, offering a tired smile. Anna attempted to return it. "It has been a long evening." He glanced toward room 407. "That case drains everyone. The family barely shows up, the board members treat him like a broken investment, and the staff are terrified of making a mistake because the man owns half the state." Anna shook her head. "He is still a person. He deserves to be treated like one." Michael let out a breath. "That is why they assigned you. You are the only one who treats him like more than a headline." She wanted to smile, but the truth stung too much. Being the one who cared meant she carried more weight than anyone realized. It meant the nights felt longer, the responsibility heavier, and the loneliness sharper. As they walked back toward the nurse's station, Anna noticed a folder left slightly askew on the corner of the desk. It had Grant Carter's name stamped in bold lettering. She did not open it, but even from the outside she recognized the color-coded tabs used for confidential updates. Something in her chest tightened. Cases like his, the ones involving wealth, influence, and questionable circumstances, often held secrets that ordinary nurses were never told. Michael followed her gaze. "You should know. There have been meetings about his accident. There are details not adding up, security footage missing, financial inconsistencies, his company board members acting strange." Anna swallowed hard. "Do you think someone wanted him hurt?" "I think," Michael said carefully, "that powerful families keep powerful secrets." The words lingered in the air between them, heavy and cold. Anna returned her empty cup to the counter and squared her shoulders. She had always known the world could be cruel, but she had never imagined she would stand in the middle of a storm involving a man whose life touched millions. And yet, here she was, in a quiet corner of a hospital at 2 in the morning, feeling like the only person left trying to protect someone who could not protect himself. What she did not know was that down the hallway, Grant Carter's son was asking a security guard for her name, and that by sunrise, her life would no longer belong only to herself. Anna returned to the nurse's station and picked up the chart she needed for her next round, but the quiet of the hallway felt different now. It carried a tension she could not name, like a faint current humming beneath the floor. She tried to focus on the routine tasks in front of her, the measurements she needed to record, the medications she needed to prepare, the long list of responsibilities that usually kept her from thinking too much. But tonight, her thoughts kept circling back to room 407, to the soft rise and fall of Grant Carter's breathing, and to the strange shadow she had sensed outside his door. She pushed the thought away and walked back toward the room with the cart. Her steps echoed down the long corridor, and the faint scent of antiseptic hung in the air. When she reached the doorway, she hesitated again. Something about the room pulled at her, urging her to enter gently, as if she might disturb more than the silence. She took a slow breath, lifted her hand, and eased the door open. The lights inside were dimmed now, bathing the space in a soft amber glow. The machines cast quiet reflections against the metallic surfaces. Grant lay just as she had left him, unmoving, his expression calm but impossibly distant. She stepped inside and began preparing the fresh linens she needed to change. Her movements were steady and methodical, but her mind wandered back to the confidential folder she had seen earlier, to Michael's words about missing footage and suspicious board members. As she lifted Grant's arm to change the sheet beneath him, her eyes landed on a faint bruise near his shoulder. It was old enough to be fading, but dark enough to suggest it had not come from the accident described in the chart. She paused. She touched the edge of the bruise gently, careful not to disturb him. It did not fit the pattern of the other injuries she had seen. It looked like a grip mark, not a trauma wound. The realization chilled her. She made a mental note of it, but she did not write it down. Not yet. Sometimes the wrong note in the wrong file ended up in the wrong hands, especially when the patient was a billionaire with enemies hidden behind polished boardroom walls. She continued working quietly, smoothing the sheet, adjusting the pillow, checking his IV line. She turned to reach for a fresh blanket when she noticed something on the bedside table that had not been there earlier. It was a business card made of thick black stock with silver lettering. She picked it up, expecting it to belong to one of the doctors or consultants, but it was not. It read, Elias Carter. Underneath the name, Chief Executive Officer, Carter Innovations. Anna blinked. She had heard the name before. Grant's only son. A man known for being brilliant, unreachable, and notoriously private. She had never met him. He never visited during normal hours. He handled everything through attorneys, assistants, and private consultants. So why had his card been left here? Suddenly, the faint shift of footsteps behind her made her turn. Elias Carter stood in the doorway, tall and sharply dressed in a dark coat, his presence filling the room before he even said a word. His expression held a mix of exhaustion and something she could not quite decipher, something cautious and searching. His gaze drifted from his father to her, lingering a moment longer than she expected. I did not mean to startle you, he said, his voice low, steady, and elegant in a way that matched the tailored lines of his coat. I wanted to thank you for taking care of him. Anna straightened instinctively. It is my job, Mr. Carter. He stepped into the room, looking at his father for a long, heavy moment. Not everyone does their job with the same devotion. She felt heat rise in her cheeks, unsure how to respond. Your father deserves dignity, no matter who he is. Elias exhaled quietly, almost as if her words struck something deep within him. He looked around the room again, then back at her. I was here earlier, he said softly. Outside the door. I heard you humming. Anna's breath caught. She had wondered if someone had been there, but hearing him confirm it sent a ripple through her. I did not realize anyone was listening. I was, he said simply. The room seemed to shrink between them. The monitor beeped steadily. The storm outside pressed rain against the windows. And in that moment, Anna understood something she had not before. The man standing in front of her was not just the son of a billionaire, he was a man who had begun watching her long before he stepped into the room. Elias did not move at first. He stood near the foot of the hospital bed, his gaze fixed on his father as if he were studying a man he had known his entire life, yet suddenly seemed like a stranger. The faint glow from the monitor cast shifting patterns across his face, revealing exhaustion layered over worry, a kind of quiet fear that men with power rarely allowed the world to see. Anna watched him cautiously, unsure whether she should leave the room or remain by the bedside as she always did. After a moment, he spoke again, his voice deeper now. I have not heard him sound this calm in months. Even before the accident, everything in his life was noise, work, pressure, board politics, expectations. But tonight, the room felt different. Anna folded the blanket at the foot of the bed, trying to keep her focus on her work. He responds well to soft music and a calm environment. It lowers his heart rate and helps the nervous system settle. Most patients in long-term recovery do better with consistent routines. Elias nodded slowly, absorbing her words with a seriousness that surprised her. You talk to him as if he can hear you. Anna hesitated. I believe that somewhere inside, even if he cannot respond, he knows he is not alone. A flicker passed across Elias' expression, something between admiration and guilt. He stepped closer to the bedside and rested his hand lightly on the railing, his fingers curling around the cold metal. My father spent most of his life surrounded by people, but he was always alone. I did not realize how much until now. Anna felt a quiet ache tighten in her chest. She knew this feeling too well. People who seemed invincible on the outside often carried the deepest loneliness. It was a truth she had learned from years of caring for patients who only had nurses and machines to witness the final chapters of their lives. I am sorry, she said softly. He glanced at her, his eyes darker under the low lights. Do not be. I am the one who should be sorry. I should have been here more often. I should have done more. The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. Men like Elias Carter were usually composed, clipped, and inaccessible. Yet here he was, standing beside a hospital bed in the middle of the night, confessing to a nurse he had just met. Before Anna could respond, the monitor beeped with a slight fluctuation. She stepped quickly to check the display, her focus sharpening. The change was small, but noticeable. She leaned closer, watching the heart rhythm settle again. He reacted just now, she said quietly. Elias straightened. To what? I am not entirely sure. It might have been the shift in the rooms, sound or movement. Sometimes even the faintest stimulus gets through. Elias looked at his father with a renewed intensity. Do you think he hears us? Anna took a breath. I think he hears something. Maybe not words. Maybe not meaning. But presence matters. Human presence always matters. Elias stood silently for a long moment. Then he spoke again. What is your name? Anna Rivera, she replied. He repeated it once under his breath, as if committing it to memory. Anna, thank you. You have shown him more compassion than half the people working for him ever have. She shook her head gently. Compassion is not about who someone is. It is about what they need. His eyes softened, and something in his posture eased for the first time. He slipped his hands into the pockets of his coat and stepped back from the bedside. I need to take care of some matters in the morning, he said. I will be back tomorrow night. May I stay for a moment longer? Anna nodded. Of course. He would want that. She stepped toward the door to give him privacy, but before she exited, she heard his voice behind her, steady and sincere. Anna, please keep doing exactly what you are doing. You may be the only reason he has not given up. Her breath caught, but she did not turn around. She simply nodded once and slipped out into the hallway, the door closing softly behind her. For the first time in a long while, the silence of the hospital did not feel like emptiness. It felt like the beginning of something shifting. Anna made her way back toward the nurse's station, but the air in the hallway felt charged in a way that unsettled her. It was not threatening. It was something closer to shift, like the quiet moment before a storm breaks open. She kept her eyes forward, trying to settle her breathing as she gathered the next set of supplies. The warmth of Elias Carter's words still lingered with her longer than she expected, creating a tenderness she was not sure she was ready to feel. She set her chart down and washed her hands slowly, letting the water run over her fingers. She needed a moment to gather herself. She had cared for dozens of patients over the years, but something about this family, about the way Elias had looked at his father, had unsettled her more deeply than she would ever admit. She was used to being invisible, to moving quietly in the background, offering care without expectation. Tonight, someone had seen her, not just her work, her. She dried her hands and turned back toward the corridor when Michael approached, carrying a tray of new medication orders. "You were gone a long time," he said, lowering his voice. "Everything all right?" Anna nodded, though the truth was more complicated than she could express. Mr. Carter's son came by. Michael raised his eyebrows. "The Elias Carter? That man is practically a ghost. He must really care if he showed up at this hour." Anna looked down at her hands. "He said he wanted to stay a little longer." Michael exhaled quietly. "Then he saw what you do. That is a good thing." Anna wished she could accept that easily, but in her experience, attention from wealthy families was rarely simple. It came with pressure, expectations, and scrutiny. It could uplift someone or crush them without warning, and she was standing dangerously close to the edge of a world she had no desire to step into. She returned to her rounds, trying to distract herself with routine tasks. She checked vitals in rooms 409 and 410, adjusted pillows, recorded temperatures, and comforted a patient who was struggling with post-operative pain. But her mind kept drifting back to room 407, to the sound of Elias' voice when he had said she might be the reason his father had not given up, to the look in his eyes when he said her name. When she finally returned to Grant Carter's room an hour later for her scheduled check, the door was cracked, slightly open. She paused, listening. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. She pushed the door open gently. Elias was still there. He sat in the chair beside the bed, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, his coat draped over the back of the chair. He looked nothing like the immaculate CEO she had imagined from the headlines. His hair was slightly mussed, his tie loosened, the exhaustion in his posture unmistakable. He looked like a son trying to understand how the world had slipped out from under him. Anna stepped inside quietly. "You are still here." Elias straightened, embarrassed for a moment. "I lost track of time." She checked the monitor, noting the stability in the readings. "It is all right. Family is allowed to stay." He nodded, then watched her work with the same silent attention as before. After a moment, he asked, "Do you ever get used to this? Sitting beside someone who cannot answer you?" Anna paused before responding. "You do not get used to the silence. You get used to speaking into it. You get used to hoping it reaches them even if you never hear anything back." Elias looked at his father again. "I wish I had said more to him when he could listen." "You can still talk to him," Anna said softly. "People in comas can recognize voices more than you think." He hesitated, then leaned slightly closer to his father. "Dad, it is me. I am here." The words trembled uncertainly, as if he had not spoken them aloud in years. Anna felt something swell in her chest, something fragile and human that echoed the same tenderness she offered her patients every night. She adjusted the blanket on the bed and checked the IV level, but her hands stilled when she noticed a tiny reaction in the monitor's rhythm. A small spike. A shift. Elias noticed too. His eyes widened. Was that him? Anna leaned in, her voice calm but full of quiet certainty. "It might be. These small reactions are signs. His brain is responding." Elias' breath caught. He looked at his father as if seeing him for the first time in months. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything you do for him." Anna stepped back, her heart thudding with a mix of fear and something softer. "I am only doing my job." But the truth was, she felt something changing too. Not in her job, in her life. Anna lingered by the bedside a moment longer, watching the subtle way Elias leaned toward his father, as if the faint shift in the monitor had ignited a hope he had not allowed himself to feel in months. The dim lights softened the hard edges of his expression, revealing the exhaustion beneath his sharp features. And something about the way he looked at the unconscious man made Anna's throat tighten. He was not a billionaire tonight, not a CEO, not the heir of a massive corporation. He was simply a son who had been carrying a burden alone for far too long. She finished recording the readings on the chart, but before she could step away, Elias spoke again. "Anna," he said quietly, "can you tell me something honestly?" She turned toward him. "Of course. Do you believe he will wake up?" His voice did not shake, but the fear behind the question was unmistakable. It was the kind of fear that sits in a man's chest like a stone, too heavy to lift, too painful to ignore. Anna approached the bed, choosing her words carefully. "I believe that responses like the ones we saw are promising. They show brain activity. They show recognition. It is impossible to predict when someone will wake up, but what I can say is that he is still fighting." Elias nodded slowly, absorbing her words as if they were something he had been desperate to hear but terrified to hope for. He leaned back in the chair, rubbing a hand across his jaw. "You know," he said, staring at the floor for a moment, "when I was younger, my father and I barely spoke unless it was about work. He built his empire from nothing, and he expected me to do the same. There was never time for anything else. No conversations, no gentleness, just goals and deadlines and expectations." Anna listened quietly. She could hear the ache hidden beneath his controlled tone. "I used to wish he would just stop," Elias continued. "Stop working. Stop carrying the weight of the world. Stop pushing himself to the edge. And now, seeing him like this, I would give anything for one more moment of the noise I used to resent." Anna felt that ache too, a mix of empathy and something deeper she could not name. "Sometimes," she said softly, "we do not realize how much someone matters until life forces us to face what we are afraid of losing." Elias looked up at her, his eyes tired but sincere. "You speak like someone who understands that too well." Anna's breath caught. She had spent years carrying the weight of her own regrets and losses, but she rarely spoke of them, not here, not to anyone. "My mother was sick for a long time," she said gently. "I took care of her until the very end. There were days when I wanted to give up, and days when I wished I had been stronger. When she passed, I promised myself that I would never let another patient feel invisible the way she sometimes did." She paused, letting the memory settle. "That promise is why I am here." Elias' expression softened, and for a moment, the distance between them felt smaller, like two people standing at the edge of the same ache. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "That must have been incredibly hard." "It taught me how important presence is," Anna replied. "Even when someone cannot speak, even when they cannot open their eyes, being there matters." Elias looked at his father again, his jaw tightening with determination. "Then I will be here more. I will not leave him alone again." Anna nodded, but as she stepped around the bed to adjust the blanket, she noticed something she had missed earlier, a faint indentation on the side of Grant's arm, near his bicep. She leaned closer, her heart tightening. It was not a bruise this time. It looked like the slightly raised imprint left behind by medical restraints. Her stomach dropped. Restraints were not used on stable coma patients. They were only used when there was a risk of self-harm or interference with medical equipment. But there had been no mention of restraints in the chart. No order from a doctor. No record at all. Anna swallowed hard. Something was wrong. She checked the chart again, scanning through the notes. Everything appeared perfectly organized, perhaps too organized. Dates lined up. Signatures were consistent. And yet the restraint marks could not be ignored. Elias noticed her expression shift. "Anna, what is it?" She hesitated, knowing that speaking too soon could jeopardize her job. Nurses who questioned irregularities involving powerful families often found themselves reassigned or silenced. But she also knew she could not ignore it. She took a breath. There is something I need to look into. It may be nothing, but some of your father's injuries do not match the charted record. Elias stood immediately. What do you mean? I mean that some wounds do not fit the accident profile, and I just noticed marks on his arm that should not be there. Elias' face hardened, the protective instinct of a son replacing the polite restraint of a CEO. Are you saying someone hurt him? Anna lowered her voice. I am saying that something about what happened to him is not what it appears to be. A long silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Elias looked at his father, then back at her. Tell me what you need. Whatever it is, I will help. Anna felt the weight of his words settle deep within her. She did not know it yet, but this moment would be the first step into a truth far more dangerous than either of them expected, and neither of their lives would be the same after it. Anna did not sleep that morning. Even after her shift ended and she stepped out into the cool, early light outside St. Jude's Hospital, her mind stayed trapped inside room 407. The restraint marks, the mismatched injuries, the missing footage Michael had mentioned. It all circled her thoughts in a slow, relentless loop. By the time she reached her small apartment on the west side of the city, the sun had begun to rise, painting the sky in soft streaks of orange. But none of the warmth reached her. She showered, changed, and tried to rest, but her body remained stiff with anxiety. After barely 2 hours of sleep, she found herself pacing the small kitchen with a cup of reheated coffee, her hands trembling. She had never been involved in anything dangerous before. She had never stepped beyond the boundary of her role as a caregiver. But something inside her refused to ignore what she had seen. When her phone buzzed, she grabbed it instantly. It was a message from an unknown number. It is Elias. Can we meet before your shift? Anna stared at the screen, her heart sinking. She had not expected him to reach out so soon, and yet she felt relieved in a way that unsettled her. She typed back, I can meet at the hospital cafe before work. He responded immediately. I will be there. The cafe near the main lobby was quiet when Anna arrived that afternoon. Bright lights reflected off polished floors, and the scent of brewed coffee drifted through the air. She spotted Elias at a corner table, still dressed in a suit, though his tie was missing and his eyes looked as though he had not slept either. He stood when she approached. Thank you for meeting me, he said, pulling out the chair for her. Anna sat, folding her hands in her lap. What did you find out? Elias took a slow breath, as if preparing himself. I had one of my security analysts review the accident records again. There are gaps in the footage from the night my father was injured. The segments missing are not random. Anna felt her stomach twist. Do they match the time of the crash? Exactly. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. And there is more. The board has been pushing aggressively to assume control of my father's shares. It looks like several of them knew about the missing footage, but said nothing. A chill ran through Anna. Why would they hide something like that? Because if the accident was staged, Elias said quietly, they could gain everything. She stared at him, stunned. She had known something was wrong, but hearing it confirmed from him felt like the floor had shifted beneath her feet. There is one board member in particular, Elias continued. My father trusted him for years, but lately he has been making decisions that suggest he was expecting my father to remain incapacitated. He paused, his jaw tightening. I believe he may have arranged the accident. Anna felt her breath catch. That is dangerous to say. It is more dangerous to ignore, Elias replied. For a long moment, neither spoke. The quiet hum of the cafe filled the space between them. Anna finally exhaled. What do we do now? Elias looked at her with a seriousness that made her pulse quicken. You said there were injuries that did not match the report. If you can document them carefully, without raising suspicion, it could give us leverage. We need evidence before we confront anyone. Anna hesitated. If I get caught questioning a case like this, I could lose my job. Or worse. I know, Elias said softly. and I will not ask you to put yourself at risk if you do not want to. But I promise you this. If you help me, I will protect you, no matter what it takes." His words landed heavily, not as a threat but as a vow. Something in his eyes made her chest tighten with an emotion she did not want to name. "I will be careful," Anna said quietly. "But I will help." Relief washed over Elias' face, and for the first time since she met him, he allowed himself to breathe deeply. "Thank you, truly. My father deserves the truth." Just then, Anna noticed a woman at the counter glancing in their direction, whispering something to another nurse. Not out of curiosity, out of recognition. Word spread fast in hospitals. Too fast. Anna stood quickly. "I should go prepare for my shift. People are starting to notice." Elias rose as well, his voice gentle. "I will return tonight. Be careful, Anna." She nodded, forcing herself to walk steadily toward the door. But as she stepped into the hallway, a cold realization spread through her. If someone inside the hospital had helped cover up what happened to Grant Carter, then whoever orchestrated the accident might already know she was asking questions. And that meant she was not just fighting for her patient anymore. She was now fighting for her own safety. Anna returned to the recovery wing with her heart pounding beneath her scrubs. She had spent the rest of the afternoon replaying every word Elias had said, every clue they had uncovered, every shadow that now felt heavier than before. When she stepped off the elevator, the hallway looked the same as it always did. Bright lights, polished floors, quiet voices drifting from patient rooms, but something in her sensed danger lingering beneath the surface. She headed straight to room 407. The door was slightly ajar again, but this time, the feeling behind it was different. She pushed it open and froze. A man stood beside Grant Carter's bed. He was dressed in an expensive charcoal suit, flipping through Grant's chart with a casual confidence that suggested he had done this before. His expression sharpened when he noticed her. "You must be the night nurse," he said, closing the chart a little too quickly. Anna felt her pulse kick up. "Can I help you?" "I am Patrick Hale," he replied. "I serve on the Carter Innovations Board. I am here to check on Grant." Anna kept her voice steady. "Visiting hours are limited. Next time, you may want to notify the staff before entering a private room." He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "I have clearance, but thank you for your concern." She stepped closer, her gaze flicking to the chart now tucked under his arm. "I will need that back. Patient documents cannot leave the room." The smile vanished. "I am not here to interfere." Just to confirm his state, Anna felt the unease sharpen. There was something cold in his tone, something too clinical, too detached for a man who supposedly cared about Grant's well-being. "He is stable," she said carefully. "We are monitoring his progress closely." Patrick stepped nearer, lowering his voice. "I hope you are not giving Elias false hope. This situation requires practicality. Grant will not be returning to the company. Those who stand in the way of necessary transitions often regret it." The threat beneath his polite tone hit her like ice. "I stand in the way of nothing," Anna replied, forcing calm into her voice. "I am here to care for him." Patrick nodded once, as if satisfied, then brushed past her. The scent of expensive cologne trailed behind him like a stain. As soon as he disappeared down the hallway, Anna hurried to the bedside. She checked the chart. Several pages were missing. She checked the monitor. Grant's heart rate was slightly elevated. She checked the IV line intact. Everything looked fine, and yet her instincts screamed that something was deeply wrong. Footsteps approached again. Anna braced herself, but when she turned, she saw Elias rushing toward the room, his expression tight. "I just saw Hale leaving," he said. "What did he do?" Anna tried to steady her breathing. "He said he was checking in, but he took part of the chart." Elias' jaw clenched. "He is the one. I am sure of it now." Anna swallowed. "We need proof, and we need to protect your father until we can confront him." Elias stepped inside the room, moving to his father's bedside with a mix of fury and fear. "I will not let him get away with this. Not with what he did. Not with what he tried to gain." Anna touched his arm gently. grounding him. Then we have to do this the right way. You cannot confront him without evidence. Elias looked at her, his voice softer. Anna, I do not want you in danger. Grant needs me, she said quietly, and you need the truth. Something in him shifted, the war between fear and determination settling into a single resolve. Suddenly, the monitor beeped sharply. Both of them turned. Grant's fingers twitched. Anna rushed to his side. Grant, can you hear me? Elias leaned close, breath unsteady. Dad, it is me. I am here. Grant's eyelids fluttered once, twice, then slowly opened, revealing a pair of unfocused but undeniably conscious eyes. Anna felt tears prick at her vision. Grant, she whispered, you are safe. Elias gripped his father's hand with both of his. Dad, hold on. We are going to fix this. I promise. Grant's lips parted, dry and weak. A faint sound escaped. Not a word, but recognition. Awareness. A spark coming back to life. Anna hit the nurse call button, her hands shaking. We need a doctor now. Elias looked at her with a mixture of gratitude and awe. You stayed with him. You believed he could come back. Anna shook her head gently, but her voice wavered. He came back because he was not alone. Within minutes, staff rushed in, doctors shouting orders, the room filling with frantic energy. Elias stepped aside, but never let go of his father's hand. Anna monitored the readings, assuring everyone that the responses followed the exact progression of a patient emerging from deep coma. When the chaos settled, Grant was breathing steadily, eyes closed again, but no longer unconscious. The doctor approached Elias. He is showing remarkable neurological response. Whoever has been working with him, they did everything right. Elias turned to Anna, emotion thick in his voice. She did. He stepped closer, his voice lowering. Anna, when this is over, I want you to know something. She held his gaze, her heart pounding. You saved his life, he said, and you changed mine. Outside the window, dawn was rising again. But for Anna and for Elias, everything had already begun anew. Anna remained close to the doorway as the medical team completed their assessments, her hands clasped tightly in front of her as she watched Grant Carter stabilize. His eyelids no longer fluttered with the randomness of coma activity. Instead, his breathing settled into a measured rhythm, steady and intentional, like a man slowly fighting his way back into the world. Every few seconds, she caught Elias looking at his father, then at her, as if trying to process the enormity of what had just happened. When the doctors finally stepped out to update the attending physician, the room fell quiet again. Elias moved to stand beside her, the tension in his shoulders replaced with something gentler, something nearly unrecognizable on a face so used to holding power. He woke up because of you, Elias said, his voice low. Anna shook her head, struggling to keep her composure. He woke up because he was ready, because he had something left to fight for. Elias looked at her with a sincerity that made her heart tighten. You gave him that. She glanced back at Grant, then whispered, He is not out of danger yet. There is still a long recovery ahead. Then we will do it together, Elias said softly. All three of us. The weight of his words settled into her like warmth, spreading through her chest. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed inside her scrub pocket. She stepped aside to answer it. It was Michael. Anna, where are you? Security is asking questions. Someone reported that Hale was seen entering the wing today without authorization. The administration is investigating. Her breath hitched. Investigating him or investigating us? Both, Michael admitted. Be careful. The board is panicking. Something big is coming. Anna ended the call slowly. When she turned back, Elias was watching her, alert. What is wrong? He asked. They know, she whispered. The board, the missing footage, the chart pages. They know something is happening. Elias did not hesitate. Let them investigate. We have what they do not. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. I had my analyst restore the footage, he said, the parts they tried to erase. Anna stared at him in shock. You have proof? Yes, Elias said. And when my father wakes fully, his testimony will end this. Hale will not escape what he did. A sudden knock on the door startled them both. The doctor entered with a relieved smile. Mr. Carter's neural responses are consistent. If he continues like this, we may begin cognitive tests within days. Elias released a shaky breath that was half relief, half disbelief. Thank you, he said, his voice thick. The doctor nodded and exited the room. Anna moved closer to the bed and gently adjusted the blanket over Grant's chest, brushing a stray strand of hair away from his forehead. His face no longer looked abandoned. It looked peaceful, present, healing. Behind her, she felt Elias watching her again, but this time the weight of his gaze felt like gratitude and something far softer. He is going to wake up, Anna said quietly. He is going to come back. Elias stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. So am I. Anna turned to him, confused. What do you mean? For years, I let my life be about work, pressure, appearances. I forgot what mattered. His gaze softened. But meeting you, seeing the way you cared for him with no expectation, no agenda, it reminded me of the kind of person I want to be. Anna felt her pulse quicken as he continued. You changed more than his life, Anna. You changed mine. The words hung in the air, fragile and honest, and the quiet of the room wrapped around them like a promise. She felt emotion rise in her chest, but forced herself to steady her voice. I did not do this for anything in return. I know, he said. That is exactly why it matters. The room fell into a peaceful silence, broken only by the steady beeping of the monitor. Anna took a slow breath and looked at him fully, without hesitation. I will help you see this through, she said, until the truth is out. And after? Elias asked gently. She held his gaze, her voice barely a whisper. We will see where life leads. Elias nodded, a rare softness spreading across his features. He extended his hand, not as a CEO, not as the heir of a powerful empire, but simply as a man offering connection. Anna placed her hand in his, inside room 407, with the first rays of evening slipping through the blinds and Grant Carter breathing steadily beside them. Something shifted not just in the machines, not just in the hospital's quiet halls, but in their lives. A new beginning, a new truth, and a quiet promise that healing had not only touched the patient in the bed, but the two hearts standing beside him.